All right. Thanks for checking in for another episode with us here. Today is my pleasure to welcome Branden of Inhouse Genetics. And I'm sure most of you have heard of these guys, and they've put out some bangers. And I thought, hey, this is the first time we've had a chat face to face, and he's not too far away in the Pacific Northwest. So that's always nice to connect. So, anyways, Branden, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Yeah, Sam, like I said, appreciate the time, and always appreciate people's time because time is valuable.
Well, it's always good fun to hear from the people behind the storied cultivars out there, and you're well known for a few. What are some of your best known ones?
Probably the big standout, obviously, is Slurricane, the Platinum Kush Breaths. A lot of the breaths that we put out over the years. So, but Slurricane is pretty much at the top of the list. It's been a decade now, it's going strong. People are loving it.
That's a modern classic, the Slurricane. Beautiful, beautiful herb. And tell us the origins of it.
So yeah, so the Slurricane lineage is the Purple Punch crossed with Dos, and they essentially you're hitting fire with fire, but they complement each other in that particular cross really well. But also, it was kind of like I said, a one shot kind of opportunity. Like they catch like we caught lightning in a bottle essentially because the crosses if other people have tried the same crosses didn't have the same results. But the seed stock that we produced from that particular run was just phenomenal, and a lot of people had obviously great success. It's won a lot of awards and just kind of went took off like storm. Same with another sleeper, which was across from the Slurricane, which was sugarcane. It it started off flat and then all of a sudden just took off and went berserk. So we've it's been pretty fortunate in that sense. Where also too, it's like anytime when you're dealing with genetics and it's going out to the world, sometimes like, oh, maybe we like overshot it. It's not as good as we thought it was. And then all of a sudden, social media starts to light up and everybody got around to popping their beans and showing off what their results are. And then it all comes full circle. So we've experienced that, hundreds of times.
There's always a curve on the new releases. Even no matter how good they are, a lot of people don't want to be the first ones to grow it. They want to see other people going, "Oh, this is awesome," and then 10 people will run out and get it after they see one guy having success, and then 10 more people, and it snowballs when something hits. That's a beautiful thing to see. And
Yeah.
somebody sent me a pack of one of yours about 3, 4 years ago, and I think it was King something. Did you have a
King
King one?
Sherb. King Sherb.
What was it? King Sherb,
King
maybe.
Sherb.
I'll have to find the pack and get back to you because I can't remember exactly. I thought it was like
Yeah.
King Louis or something, or is that they both
No, I think the one that really
things?
took off was King Sherb. That was one that was real popular. So like if it was a few years ago, so like 2021, 22, or basically 2020, 2021, 22 in that range, King Sherb was king at that particular moment. So, but yeah, like when it comes to when you're breeding and creating seed, you have your set of testers, and we have a great group of testers now around the world. And so, getting those results that are coming back, like I said, you're getting the internal hunt plus multiple different mediums, so you're getting kind of a collective on what's going to perform well, and you kind of want to thread that needle right in the middle. So a novice will still have good results, but also people that are really down with their craft, like the home growers that have put a lot of time and energy into their grow are going to have phenomenal results. And so that's where you're trying to find, always constantly trying to find that equal that balance there.
Never ending tale. The
No,
was I right about King Louis? Was King Louis one of the ones you had?
No, no. King
No.
Sherb. See what else do we have? Uh, we're pretty thoughtful on the names, you know. So,
Okay, I'll
because
have to look back at it. It's driving me nuts now. I wish I looked for it earlier. But yeah,
yeah,
curious. And you said the platinum Kush breath was a big one for you.
yeah. So Platinum Kush Breath was a huge one. Like I said, like, and I mentioned prior to that, sugar cane, not in within the platinum crosses. So with the platinum, that's kind of a staple for us, and the reason why is because it's so versatile. And the the platinum is the permafrost Heinz UW hash plant. So the UW hash plant is a local plant here that was worked on and studied by the University of Washington, and so it has that obviously the hash lineage, and it's a hash plant. So when you had the trichome build from the permafrost go into that hash plant, it just made a beautiful plant and a really workable plant, and it's got major resistance to pests and PM, and so it's very versatile plant on all of the crosses. So we find a lot of people putting a lot of platinum crosses outdoors because because of the resilience of it, and so it's really a resistant plant. And we have a grow outdoor here in Eastern Washington, and when you grow on scale, there's times when it's the weather will turn on you, so the plants will actually freeze and thaw out over a couple of days until you can get to that part of the field to harvest it, and you still have a good solid plant. The vast majority of all outdoor now goes towards extraction. But yeah, but yeah, a lot of
Sure.
our platinum crosses out there, a lot of people have really great results because it's just a universal plant all around. It's a great washer, it's great bud, great terp profiles, and just a sturdy, strong plant.
I had great results with a platinum cross from Sin City Seeds. This was years ago, and it was outdoors, right by the equator, actually, in a hot lower latitude or lower altitude field. And that one was totally mite resistant. It was one of a couple in the test blocks that were totally mite resistant. In the dry season, you get mites in fields down there. In the rainy season, not so much, but shoulder season, not so much. But when it's hot, but you could totally see they didn't like it. It was Platinum Delights. That was Platinum Delights from Sin City. Anyway, definitely I was impressed at the mite resistance it had, and it didn't
Yeah.
have a big problem with mold either. It was so hard and tight. When it rained, the water just ran off it like it was an oiled golf ball. Like it couldn't even get wet. It was so tight, and it was gorgeous nug. Like that nug, if anybody would be stoked to have it. Anybody, it is amazing to see what some of those things do in the
We were
equatorial
fortunate enough
conditions. Which
we were fortunate enough to have the University of Mississippi do some work on the platinum plant, and so to kind of basically back up the fact that it is really resistant to a lot of stuff. And so, were you thinking? And it was just going through my head. I think you're thinking of King Bling.
maybe that was it. Yeah, I thought it was King something, King Bling. That sounds familiar. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
because
think it was
then we
about two
started
years
talking
ago.
about we started talking about platinum, and so it kind of dawned on me. So it's King Bling, King Sure, because we only have a
Yeah,
couple
that's it.
of with
What's
kings in
King
front of
Bling?
it.
What is that? That's got to be what it
That
was. Yeah.
yeah, that's a platinum times blue sherbet.
Oh, neat. Well, I bet
No,
there's
no,
some
no.
fire in that
Platinum
pack.
times King Sherb. No, we were on the right path. It's a
Oh,
platinum times the
platinum.
King Sherb.
Oh, that'll be super cool. That'll be
Yep.
super
So
cool to see.
that's why it's King Bling is the platinum, and then King Sherb.
Oh, right on. Well, I'm really looking forward to cracking those, man. The when did you first start puffing herb? What's your first memories of herb?
Oh, like fresh right into high school. So typical. Um, it was the first like I think it might have been the first day of school, like ninth grade. You Yeah, you kind of a little bit dabbled with it in the summer, but when you actually had if you're talking about like your first actual smoke sesh with some friends and some people, it was basically
Yeah.
right at ninth grade. We went down to the U district and scored an eighth, and then jumped on the bus and went to a friend's house, and then we just passed the bowl around and just got geeked. And I remember when I was heading home, I had a long ass bus ride, and I stopped by this little corner store, and they had a little deli type of thing, and they had egg rolls, the big egg rolls, and sweet and sour sauce, and that was the best egg roll I think I've ever had in my life. You know, because you got the munchies, you're hungry as shit, and uh and uh and so yeah, and then it made the bus ride good, and it was a fun experience. But the nice part is like you're you already got kind of introduced to it, and then but also too, this is 1996, so it's like still like a taboo type of thing, and all of that. So people that go that far back realize like the amount of stress that the amount of work it took just to smoke weed back in the day was a task and a half. You had to find a really good plug, a solid one that was consistent. Wasn't always consistent. Sometimes you got some bunk, and it was just like you smoke a couple of bowls, and now all of a sudden you got a headache, and you're like, damn, I just got, and then, you finally find somebody that's got a consistent flow, then you kind of stick with that person, and then you get on, weed to, basically weed time and shit. So, person like, yeah, yeah, I'll meet you in 30 minutes. That's code for an hour and a half, so you kind of, we had to work for our sacks back in the day.
And that was all the more satisfying when you decided to start growing your own, I bet. That was the same with me, where it was like, I'm tired of dealing with these idiots. I'd rather just grow my
Yeah.
own. When did you start growing your own?
It was like a combination of a couple things. Um, so a couple of like I have friends that I went to school with that we're super tight. So we we're obviously started off buying eighths, and then quarter ounces, QPs, then to pounds, and then kind of sharing amongst friends and selling to each other and all that. And then I have a really good friend, Seattle's best, that found a really good solid connection on some Canadian beasters back in the day, and so 1 pound, and worked from that 1 pound, and we worked up, and as a group, like, to turn that 1 pound essentially into contractor bagfuls, and then that went from there to, next thing you know, you're finding yourself up in Canada, up in Abbotsford, and a few other places, talking to low key to people, being like, what's it going to take to get to get some stuff across the border? And then it's like, we'll meet you at the border, you figure it out. I had a pretty good understanding of the border up there. So like in between Blaine and Silver Lake, I knew like where they would harass you, where they wouldn't. And so we started on that path. It's just kind of what this is has been a natural progression of stuff, right? And then all the while you keep your circle nice and tight, and you don't, if you don't need to know, or somebody doesn't need to know, you don't need to tell them, right? And so and then there's always that scare back in the day when somebody would get hemmed up, and you couldn't really talk to that person because you weren't sure, so like that's why we always kept everything really tight to the vest. And those people, we're still, thick as ever, and super tight with each other. We've all kind of branched in our own different directions and this and that, and all that. But it was a really fun time, and I wouldn't trade it for anything, but also stressful. Like one thing that I kind of like now is we don't have that situation hanging over our head where you're constantly stressed out. But went from, basically buying sacks to, you know, to basically contractor bags, and to, selling, 100 pound, 200 pound, boxes. And you're also recognizing like, ooh, I could grow this, and so at the time, somebody was growing It was like 2001 or something, 2002. They were, I think it was growing like White Widow, I believe, and gave me some clones. And it was a guy that I worked with. So I was in the construction business. He was growing weed, and I was like, "Ooh, I want to try this," you know. And so he gave me 10 or no 6 or 7 clones, you know, and they came in loose dirt in a box, and I killed them. Didn't take very long. I didn't know what I was doing, and so he was just an old ornery guy. I felt bad, but I had to go back to him and be like, "Yeah, I killed them." He's like, "Yeah, you're not getting any more though." And I was like, uh, you know, can I get some more? And he was like, well, go do some homework, you know, go figure it out. And because he wasn't letting me come to his spot, you know, he wasn't going to let me come and check out his stuff. And so, yeah, so anyhow, I started doing a little homework, got kind of the basics of it, and got another set of clones. And it basically kind of started, and then, you know, started an addiction, like in a good addiction. And I was just fascinated watching something that I could put a light over. And I just, if the initial first light I think I used was basically a shop light like you find in a warehouse. You know, it had the sodium light and big old huge ballast on the top of it. Put that over the plant, and then you graduate from there. And we had a really good store here, a grocery store called Eco Enterprise back in the day, and they had a basically a mailer or a little magazine. So it was like kind of like a wish list type of magazine. And you start flipping through it, and next thing you know, are you have your bedroom. I was in a duplex at a time and had a roommate, and we had this room that we kind of, you know, built out a little bit, hung a light, and started growing some plants. And then that's just kind of, you know, it just sprawled from there. So it went from tiny little closet literally where I had these plants in, and they overgrew that little closet, plus that heat. I had to keep the door open all the time, and then into a bedroom into a basement, couple of basements, and then from a basement, finally got like a commercial space, like a warehouse, and then you got a few warehouses up to that. So you just kind of keep graduating. And one thing I've always been into is hunting and finding hard to find genetics, but also very hard to grow genetics. And around this time was when I was coming up. OG strains were extremely difficult to grow. Plus, nobody really liked them because the bud structure was so small. So if you remember getting back in the day with the true like OG strains, they had very tight buds. But and then at the time you're competing with like the Bubbas of the world and all that, where they were just everything in life was all big buds, right? And but however, you could have, you know, a bud of OG and a bud of say like Bubba is like night and day. You know, your turkey bags are half full, even though it still weighs a pound. They're half full compared to like jam packed with these other stuff because that was like big buds were king.
The fluffy
So
buds.
yeah, yeah. So the and so anyhow, just kind of stuck with it, and then you start accumulating strains, and plus had the other people around me that were starting to grow too. So then at the time, you didn't, like I said, it was at the time, it might even still be the law, but at the time, if you had 99 plants, it was a misdemeanor. But if you had 100, it was a felony, and it was a federal case. Like it instantly went to federal, and that's a big, huge thing hanging over your head. And so once I kind of got to a certain point, you kind of wake up with anxiety because you're like, shit, is today the day? You know, I knew one point in my life there, if I got cracked, I was going to make the news no matter, there was no way around it, you know?
Right,
And
right.
so you wake up and like,
Sure.
oh, but, um, but yeah, it's just kind of like one of those things. Like I've always been a personable person. So, being able to talk to people and actually kind of gain confidence pretty quickly, and just being open to work with people. And so that's the only time where I've had catastrophes or something like a die off or something like that. I've had numerous people that have my back to be like, "Hey, let's get you back up and running." And on the flip side of that, I've done the same thing. So it's I would say is like, yeah, a lot of people say, "Oh, I built this, I did this, I did all that." I got to really take the time and credit the people that, you know, that I came up with, you know, my friends and people that I've worked with over the years, because it truly if you once you get into that mode and you have like the set of solid people around you, and you're determined to grow and move forward, there's a lot that could be had, and that's most definitely. And then those are some of the same people that I talk to on the regular to this day, you know.
Wild. Yeah, it's there was the ups, the upsides and downsides. You remember, obviously there was a lot of stress, and it's not cool. And for all the people that had big problems, my heart goes out to them. But of course, there was that camaraderie of being outside the system that was also strong bonds were made, I think, in a lot of cases. And
It
but it's not
truly.
paranoia if they really are out to get you.
Nah, man, like I
Right.
tell you, one thing that I do miss about and being nostalgic is it felt like we were in a club that nobody else was in. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Like we
Yeah.
we were onto something, and we were doing something that we knew was way bigger than us, but we didn't know it at the time. We just knew what we were doing was paving or making headway, right? And what I mean by that is like you and I come across in the grocery store, be like, oh yeah, what kind of tomatoes you growing? You know, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
have this mutual kind of respect, like, ooh, I wonder what this guy's setup it looks like. You know what I mean? Right? Like, wonder what
Yeah.
he's growing. I wonder what his bud looks like. But
He's a
you got
Rockwell.
that.
He's a Rockwell GH dude.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
was like
That's right.
there was just a kind of a common ground, mutual respect there. You know what I mean? And which is quite different of what the world that we live in today. But I really do miss some of those early attributes. I wouldn't, but you got to take the good with the bad. But yeah, it was exciting to watch some of the stuff coming up, like going from dirt and especially it was growing in a basement. We had to go up flights of stairs and packing dirt out of a basement. It's just not fun. So I was like, started researching, and I came up when I settled on the deep water culture system. It was some Dutch guy had 4 buckets as a control bucket. And engineering by nature, I'm looking at that. I was like, oh, I can make 100 buckets that are all connected to each other, right?
You know,
With a control bucket.
99. 99.
Oh yeah, no, you're already
Yeah.
once you factor in clones, once you factor all that in, it's a pretty wild. And
You're already
so
over. You're already over.
yeah, so you're going for it. Plus, you got people. The cool part is you set it up because you got people that know when your harvest is. They're already you're. It's all kind of dialed in and kind of situated. But yeah, no, I was hooking up at one point. We had a couple of runs where there was 110 buckets connected to each other with a 50-gallon control bucket, and we were just constantly. It was easier to pump water out to the yard than it was to pack dirt out to the yard, and it was just basically being like,
Sure. Sure.
we
Sure.
can we can do better, and this is better. Now, you're not going to get that explosive growth anywhere else that you would get into like a deep water culture. But then you're realizing like, oh, I have to replace everything that's in the soil. I got to replace it into water, right? And this is a time when we had some forums that were people were talking about it, and you had to apply other things to this, right? And so yeah, I did the deep water culture, and then from the deep water culture, then went to flood and drain, right? Flood and drain. I love flood and drain. Rockwell cubes, loose cubes, 1 gallons, sea of green. Put it in the trellis, thin it out a little bit, and it's just money. And then you have 2 separate rooms, and then with the nursery, so you put on a 30-day, 30-day cycle. Or sorry, you said, it's basically you're harvesting every 30 days. So you put the fill in that first room, and then when you get the 30-day mark, you fill in the second. So you're harvesting every 30 days. Now you got somewhat of a semblance of a structure and assembly line. And then it's kind of funny because through all those years, now we breed in living soil. So we're right back in soil, but that soil stays in place, and we just when we harvest, we just
Yeah.
re-amend and till and all that. But it's so cool. So when you reflect on that, and then when I do like these podcasts and stuff like that, it's fun because I get to reflect on those aspects and the things that came. And every grower knows the work and dedication it takes. The plant doesn't wait for nobody, so they don't care if the plant. is gonna do its thing and provide everything you want for it, but you got to put the energy and effort. And then you might be tired. It's 11 o'clock, and you're like, "Oh, I need to get this done." That plant, depends on you. Next thing you know, you're there till 1, 2, 3 in the morning. Making sure everything gets done because for some reason, the littlest day setback when you're growing seems to add 3 days. One day is equal to 3 days. The same with cloning, right? So if you're set to clone on the 15th and somehow you miss or you get delayed and you clone on the 16th, somehow I don't know how it works, and I still haven't figured out to this day, but it seems to throw everything off a full week. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but it's just one of the things that have kind of learned over the years.
I don't that they rootin on the week. Is that what you mean? I'm
No,
kind of a
so
little confused there.
so it seems like so especially like when it comes to cloning and comes into production, you have to clone specifically on the day to stay in line. But if you miss it a day or so, it seems to kind of throw the whole system off where like it takes a little bit
Okay,
longer to root. I don't know if it's just Mother Nature disciplining you for not being disciplined. It's just a kind of an
I
odd
don't
thing
know.
that I've always noticed because
I
we
hadn't noticed. Yeah.
yeah, we spent good 5, 6 years in like a regiment, in a regiment where it was very, schedule oriented, right? You had to get this done. So as an example, when you harvested a room, you needed to flip back the next day, right? So you would clear out, harvest, hang, scrub the room down, clean everything, and then you come in the next morning and put the new set of plants in
Replant.
there. Yep. And you have to turn over those rooms. And so, but it just seemed like sometimes if you're cloning on a certain day, so that way you can get your full veg in and all that. But if you missed it by a day or so, it seemed like it would throw everything off like a week, is what I was getting at.
Okay, okay. Well, yeah, it's so important to get that turnaround down that you've got it tight. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
It's one
The
of those things
downtime
that
is not good.
that's the cool part about growing is growing. And that's why we always preach to people, like, even if you're on the fence of growing, you should always try, and a good chance that you might fail at first, but it's just the continuity of staying with it. And because the plant teaches you so much stuff, it disciplines you, teaches you patience, teaches you schedule, teaches you a lot of life skills, and that you can apply to the rest of your life. So that's why, we always tell people, like, take it upon yourself, take the power in yourself, and grow for yourself. And what we're
Yeah,
moving and shifting here now into is recognizing the plant and what's inside that plant, from the terpenes, the flavonoids, the cannabinoids, and all of that. And it's coming to the realization that we're now in transitioning into fully understanding that this plant is medicine and nutrition at the same time, depending on how you look at it and how you function with it. Because before, it was monetary gain, it was the thrill of growing, keeping it away from the police. That's why we grew indoors, is to conceal it. That's why I didn't really fully understand legalization, where people were building out buildings and building it indoors, going, hey, we can grow in the open now, right? You got a license, so build a greenhouse. Build a Dutch style enclosed greenhouse. There's ways to do it, and cost effective ways to do it, but each to their own. But my point is I always preach and urge people to no matter what, grow your own green, grow your own food, get your hands into the soil, touch grass, walk out there. Even if you're just growing one or two plants outside, just as a challenge, I urge and support that full heartedly.
yeah. People are definitely well served to grow their own anything because you always appreciate it a lot more. So I mean, even if you don't think it's a big deal to buy tomatoes at the store, they always so nice when you have your own from the yard and you can let them ripen until the day they're ready. And really, it's just another experience when you're picking a plant you grew. So It's a pleasure,
Yes.
and I think you get a whole other appreciation for it. Yeah, it's hard to go back. I mean, it's not that other people don't grow nice stuff too, and it's fun to share with your friends and, see what everybody's doing. But if you don't do any yourself, I don't think you ever really gain a full appreciation for it. Like, you can get a very good appreciation for it as strictly a connoisseur, but I think you kind of have to go, like, I think you're at the 9 out of 10 level there, but you can't have a full appreciation until you've grown it and know what goes into it. And yeah, you get attached to it, and of course you're biased because it's yours and everybody loves theirs, and that's great. It's a it's a great
One thing,
hobby, and it's unfortunate. Like in Washington, I don't think they have homegrown
no,
allowances, do they?
no, they don't. No,
That's
unfortunate.
unfortunate.
We're looking to change it and putting bills forward to change that aspect. We just live in a very greedy state, so if they could tax a home grow, it would be legal to home grow. They just don't know a way to tax
Right.
it. Um, but yeah, no, it's
Painful.
just the world that we live in. But to the point that you were saying though is growing now is great because we have this phenomenal community around us that you're a part of, I'm a part of, and we have on these social platforms, we got people. Some of the best growers, hands down, are these home growers banging out these tents. Some of the like that's one thing that I really enjoy on a daily basis is turning on my X feed or my turning on social media and watching my timeline filled with people just out there killing it. Not even, I mean, it's not even in-house genetics. It's just people out there putting in work and making things happen and making those plants look so beautiful. And it's really cool because it takes a lot of courage to take a picture and post it because you know that you're going to get some sort of criticism, right? You're like, oh, your light's too close to your plant's too close to
Yeah,
the light, this and that.
you,
And that's why I
yeah,
tell people is like
you,
haters are always going to hate, keep posting because I'm a big fan of it. I love seeing it. And especially
yeah,
over
it's
on
nice.
X.
I like to see what they're all doing.
Yeah. Yeah. But it
Sorry.
goes to show like, you have such a great community that when you do run into issues and you run into problems, there is great people out there that will help you and steer you in the right direction and uh and really kind of come around and also too I've seen this community really gather together to help people. I've seen, we've been a part of fundraisers and this and that, but what I'm getting at is ultimately this is one of the rarest communities that are made up with so many people of so many different backgrounds, and then also on top of that, it just the so much good that comes from it, and it's really hard to divide it or to split it up because like for instance, I'm in Washington, you're up in Canada. I'm gonna get off of here and I'm gonna talk to somebody over in the UK in the Middle East here in a couple of hours, right? And this is one of the few communities where if we're talking plant, we all speak the same language, and that's just to me is phenomenal. And I'm really fortunate and happy to be a part of that and being a part of that story.
Yeah, it's something, man. It's transcends nationality, and to me, that's important because I feel like nationalism is tearing the world apart. And I love how, with cannabis, we can kind of be our own, you know, nation, as it were. We're
I
everywhere.
would I would
There's,
probably
we
I would probably take it a step further
go,
and say that it doesn't have any lines. It doesn't have religious lines, doesn't have creed lines.
yeah, no,
If you're a
exactly.
decent, good person, you're in, right? You're a part of this
Yeah.
community, and
Yeah,
yeah. So
even
that's
if you're not, you're in. There's a.
yeah, yeah.
It's not even a
Well,
question of morality.
yeah,
There's,
equal opportunity.
everybody that smokes pot is not your friend, man. I figured that out a long time ago. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's
But
also
it's all part of the thing. You can't say the community's all good or all bad because it's just like any community where you've got both good and bad.
yeah, but I think overall, when you look at it around, you look at other communities and you look at other stuff, I just think it's really cool the fact that we get to see so many different aspects and different views of stuff. And like for instance, we put on a project called One World, One Plant, and we have people sign up from around the world, and we send them a like a paper envelope, something like this, and uh, it gives them the opportunity to pop some seeds. The seeds are free, so if you mess it up, no harm, no foul. But what it does is it brings a bunch of people together that otherwise wouldn't have been brought together, and they start talking to each other. And when we first started it, we had 300 people sign up. We issued everybody a ticket with a number. We didn't tell anybody, but we picked everybody on there, but we still went through the role of calling off numbers, and so people were sitting in front of their screen seeing if their number got picked, and they were getting excited. Their number got picked because we picked every single number. But we had a start date of January 1st, and it was cool to see basically from the middle of the Pacific Ocean start and people putting their seeds in water, and throughout the course of the day and into the evening, the people were putting up pictures and the hashtag, and it was really cool to see. And then everybody was keeping track of their results, and like I said, the out of that group, there's still groups of 10 or 20 people that still are in these group messages that interact with each other and still growing and moved on to other stuff, but they know each other, particularly from that project. And it was really, our takeaway was, it just was some idea that we had come up with in a live. It said, let's try something different and see what we can do. And but the emails and the feedback and how excited people were, it was really infectious, and it was really awesome to see. We've tried a couple of different variations of it, and now we're just going back to the old school and hooking people up directly with the One World, One Plant stuff. So it's a lot of fun, and it's cool to do.
Cool. Good for you. That's nice. A nice initiative. It's nice to think, the sun never sets on your weed when people are growing it all around the world.
Yeah,
It's like
I made a joke the other day in a meeting, was like, some of us should be getting carbon credits for the amount of plants that we're responsible for putting out to the world. You know what I mean? Right. Um, but
yeah.
when you think about it, is like it's cool to see. It'll never be lost on me. It's never like lost on us in that sense, because if anybody understands in-house and has followed us for a long time, only reason why we really came out and started getting vocal in public is because we started seeing home growers being attacked with legalization coming on, and also people claiming that they were us when they weren't. So we had to kind of make the decision to at least start coming out and interacting with people, because a lot of people remember we were strictly user generated content. It was never about us individually. It was about the people that took the risk and taking the risk of growing, and then also taking a chance on in-house being the chosen gear that they grew, or that they grew out. And that's why we always highlight that particular group of folks, and that's like who we advocate for. That's who we ride for, and that's why we're here.
Oh, good for you. That's solid. So when did in-house start? What year?
So my partner started making seeds around like 2012, 2013. We were growing, we were sourcing genetics from all over the place, anywhere we could get it. And we are also doing production for pack sales and this and that, for that aspect. So we were just always had phenomenal genetics around us. And then, and like anything, you got to start making seeds, and you start putting those out to the world, and then it starts coming back, and people are having really great results. And then the naming of it was originally going to be Firehouse, which FIYA, which I'm glad that wasn't the one that we went with. but
Didn't stick.
in-house it in-house stuck. But yeah, and then it's been it's been quite the roller coaster because even in 2015, 2016, 2017 time, it was still sketchy. You get what I'm saying? So this is still like right at the early stage of Washington, Colorado coming online as legalization. We had some covering of the medical market, but seeds were still a big deal, still in a taboo thing. And 2018 Farm Bill obviously changed all that and opened up a wide opportunity and open road for us. But like prior to that, it was still sketchy, and that's why even through all that time you're staying super private, and you're kind of spreading the you're spreading the weight out, and still getting a lot of stuff accomplished. And we are a small operation, but we seem to pull off some of the biggest things.
Right on. So what are you working on now that's you're most excited about?
Right now, me in particular, what I'm working on most excited about is we've been developing and working on a high CBG plant. So anybody that doesn't know, CBG is the mother of CBD and THC. So we've been working a lot with this CBG plant. We're starting to cross it into our catalog. And what we're looking for, the results that we're looking to get is a higher terpene profile. And get that nose from like the late 90s, early 2000s for a lot of people that remember that, but also bring up the other cannabinoids, basically seeing if we can trigger that plant to produce a 5%, 7%, 10% CBD, even if it comes at the cost of higher THC. Because I think that really a good balance is like a 22, 23% THC with a 10%, 7 or 10% CBD, So basically just looking at different avenues, because we, for the past 12 years, breeding has gone to this extreme to get the highest THC, and that's come at the cost of the other cannabinoids, and in many cases, the terpenes.
That's a noble endeavor, man. You got
Yeah,
you got lots. There's endless amounts of breeding goals you can have. So you gotta choose a few and dive into you know something because you
but
can't try and do 200 different things, but you can definitely do a handful for sure, right?
yeah. Well, we usually at any given time we have 2 to 5 things that are going on simultaneously. So it just depends on what's what and who's working what and who's doing what. But the one thing that the main goal on anything when it comes to growing, when it comes to breeding is optimum health. You have to have optimum health. And so, you're going to run in and encounter problems. It's how you encounter problems and how you deal with them. Like for instance, you're always constantly going to be battling pests. You're always going to be battling pathogens. You're always going to be battling some sort of element because you're dealing with nature. And so that's why you want to be studious and stay and get the optimum health as possible for moving forward on anything, whether you're just simply flowering or if you're moving into creating seeds. Optimum health, it all comes back to a healthy plant. So what you put in is what you're gonna get out. But also too, you run into problems, so don't let that discourage you. Everybody runs into problems, and think of them as a situation where it's a learning situation rather than a defeat. So if you run into a problem, you can go, I'm going to learn from this, and I'm going to take the steps so I don't ever have to maybe encounter this issue ever again, even though you're going to encounter it again. So just anytime you think that you have everything fully dialed in, Mother Nature will humble you at a drop of a dime.
That's for sure. Yeah, you can never
Hmm.
stop learning, and you gotta take them as lessons. The setbacks have to be lessons, or they're not worth it. If you learn from them, it's good. like most things in
Well,
life. But sometimes
one thing I will say that I've heard that really sticks in my head is it's not about the setback, it's about the comeback, right? So
well,
acknowledge
that's
the
a good way to
setback,
look at it.
but focus on the comeback. And really it's
I
just like
like it.
anything. You got to evolve, you got to evolve and you got to keep pushing forward. And one thing that I would stress to people out there is this is for home growers, this is your time to shine, right? This is your opportunity to really showcase and start putting stuff out to the world and setting standards and setting your own goals, and never stop growing and always be hunting, always looking, always keep looking for the next big thing. Because what you're going to find is once you find something that is special, that's going to be like the universe assigning you that particular plant, and what I mean by that is there's going to be a purpose or a reason why you grow that plant. And that's where we're shifting. Like I mentioned before, we're now shifting into growing for a purpose and a reason. So some people are growing out there because they have ADD, and this particular strain calms them down. They have a treatment or cancer or something like that. This plant is aiding and helping them in their recovery. So, we're starting to now shift into that era and to that renaissance. And I'm excited for that. And that's why we also talk a lot about that and discuss that a lot on social media, the cannabinoids and its effect, and how it's going to going to affect your overall body and health.
Super cool. You've got a very well-rounded approach to it all. That's
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
it's good to be.
the, that's the thing is, like we have breeding projects going on, but also utilizing our platforms and the people that respect us. And so we like to provide as much information to people as possible, keep people current on what's going on. But also, as we learn stuff, we like to pass that information along to people, and bounce the ball into their court. Because when you think about it, like we're getting up there in age. We have to now start shifting and inspiring people that are half our age, to get inspired and get motivated to take it to a whole new level, and take it way past than we were. It's like it was our responsibility to take it from the people that we learned from and the people that paved the trail for us to be here, and now it's our turn now to pay homage and repay that, and incentivize and get these younger folks motivated to do better than we ever possibly think we could do. And if that's we're sitting here 25 years from now and people are doing stuff that there's no way we would even fathom or could do it, that's going to be a good thing to reflect on and go, yeah, we had a part in that. We helped spur that.
No, that's a long chain, right? It's a long chain of people saving seeds for millennia, and we all stand on the shoulders of giants, right? So the younger generations have to appreciate that too, and carry on the tradition with all the new tools and new technology available to them, and the hopefully better legalization that they can actually do something with, and I know in a lot of places the earlier iterations of legalization are really almost quicksand for people. Like it's a trap, like they get in and it's hopeless. But I think in some places, generally where the regulations are a little lighter, then the people have a better chance of making a go of it. Otherwise, in some places, there's limited licenses and barriers to entry. I hope, how is it in Washington? Are companies there able to do okay, or is it all taxes and
Yeah,
no
no,
profits, or how does it work there?
it so the tough part about legalization is it came together so fast and it wasn't really thought through, and the system and the situation that they developed ultimately was set up to fail. And so now if you don't have a deep bank account and deep pockets. In some states, you're not even getting into the market. In Washington, here in particular, we're watching producer processors get hammered because we have a gatekeeper type of system here where they have to go and they can't fully vertically integrate, you know. So you are at the mercy of the store buying your product. So that's why if you and 200 other people are growing the exact same strain, those retailers are going to wait for one of those, you know, for people to come down on their price and beat them down on their price and so what it does is it lacks um, individualism and kind of you know, kind of basic on how we all kind of came up, but it sucks because what they should have done is they should have went kind of like the craft beer route, right? So like if Breeder Steve wanted to link up with like 4 or 5 people, kind of set up a co-op and grow some really high quality bud, they could actually put a storefront in the front of their place, you know, kind of resemble a little bit how the medical was, and open an opportunity to a lot of people, and then let the free market determine who's going to the winner and who's not the winner, and
Amen.
what that would do,
Amen.
you know, and but instead what they did is they were like, whoever can pay the most, and we're gonna put all this hodgepodge and pieces together. We're gonna take out and alienate the vast majority of the people that need to be in the industry in order for it to be a good industry. And since that didn't happen, what we're seeing is mold and bug ridden facilities and people that have no business in the industry. They've already alienated the person or the couple people or their master grower or whatever. I think if we just truly advocate and got back to the roots, and we did along the lines like of a craft brew, how they came up in the 90s, let people innovate together, come up with techniques, and bring the genetics back, and let it grow organically, you know, literally and metaphorically. And so that's where I think hopefully we could maybe come to our senses and build off of that, because I think Canada and the United States are kind of in the same boat. They got this like ticking time bomb, and they don't know what to do. And it's what it's doing is it's coming at the cost of all the mom and pops, and their dreams and ambitions and funds are getting crushed because regulators and our politicians don't know anything about this plant, but they're so quick to regulate it instead of tapping on the people that should be in there helping make decisions and this and that. They went to the highest bidder, and that's why we're seeing the devastation that we're seeing across Canada and across the United States. That's just in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's a valid opinion, man. I think there's a lot of people that threw their hat in the ring that perhaps regretted it later because, and I didn't get involved in the Canadian scene because as much as I always wanted legalization and pushed for it, I had no interest in what I saw as, you know, designed to fail. It was like all the profits will go to taxes and there won't be any profits. And that's literally what's happened. So the government makes billions off it, and all, you know, the vast majority of investors got hosed, and the vast majority of small growers that got micro licenses are struggling. And there's always exceptions to the rule, at least thank God, you know, 'cause I know there's the ones that have got their act together and got EU GMP certification. They've been able to survive on exports, which don't, you know, not more than survive. Some of them have been able to really thrive on them because they can export it to Germany or, you know, Australia or somewhere else that will accept it, and then they don't have to pay excise on it because it's exports. But for domestic, the excise is so crazy that means even if you were selling a pack of leaf joints just to help people quit cigarettes, you know, here, smoke leaf joints, you know, the taxes would still be higher than on a pack of cigarettes. You know, you would just make sure that you could never sell a pack of joints cheaper than a pack of cigarettes. And I always thought that was a huge lost opportunity. Because if packs of joints were half the price, I bet a lot of people would switch, even if it was
Well,
mild.
there's a
You know,
couple
who cares?
There's a couple things that kind of stick out that really didn't help the situation, and one is just because you have 50,000 feet does not mean you should grow 50,000 feet. You should grow to what your market is. So if you have a market for 100 pounds, grow 110 pounds, right? Don't grow 200 because you think that you're going to sell the other 90. Because what it does is you cheapen yourself. And then secondly, thing that didn't really help was COVID, right? So COVID was a boom. Don't get me wrong. It was a boom, but what people didn't recognize was the 2018, 2019 in legal states, there was already a decline in the process, and then it stopped because everybody had to go home, and so it all shot up, and so everybody was, it was, you remember the time, it was crazy, it was haywire. But what a lot of people didn't recognize was that wasn't the new norm. That was like a holiday, like a bubble, and then when that bubble burst, all these people made they grew in that period, and they extended, and they made a bigger footprint and all that. And then when things leveled out, they're left with all this extra product and all this extra space that, not recognizing in real time that that was going to be a 16 to 24-month bubble, and didn't act accordingly. And everything went back to its decline after that bubble burst, right? So if you're in an industry or anything, you have to look at the numbers. The numbers don't lie. The numbers will tell you what and help you forecast everything that's coming your direction. So what you're seeing was people being like, "Oh, we did 3 million last year." That was in the thick of COVID. Everybody's, in a sense, got either free money or, was sitting at home and wanted something to do, and smoking weed and discovering cannabis was something that they chose. But now they're back to work. Now they're back to real life, right? So they've kind of changed up their stuff. And so now you're making half of that. Where people think that they're missing that, revenue. In reality, it was just a revenue holiday in many cases. But you're going back to your regular numbers that you were doing before they
Yeah,
came on. And
it
so
gave them unrealistic expectations, right?
100%.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it goes back to like one thing that's very important, and the reason why home growers are very important is because when it comes to the industry, whether you like it or not, home growers is going to be where the innovation happens. That's where the problems are going to be solved. I have a feeling that's where HLVD is going to be overcome. A lot of issues are going to be worked out and figured out in somebody's grow, whether it's in their tent or in their basement or in their garage. Another thing too is it's a way to harbor and protect and keep genetics safe. And what I mean by that is if you allow that community to thrive, then you will always have genetic diversity, and it won't turn into corn where we only have two or three varieties that's controlled by one company. And another thing too is as we start getting more research papers coming out on the benefits of cannabinoids, a lot of low yielding strains are some of the most potent strains directly related to your health and your body to help you get to homeostasis. And commercial grows just aren't going to grow a low yielding strain. So you should be able to have the right to grow that strain because you're growing it for yourself or your family member or your community, so that way they can get healthier. And so I think that's why whether you're a home grower or not, I think that you should always look and support those folks, because that's where that's where the last line of defense before the possibility of this whole plant being co-opted and stolen from us once again.
homegrown is gotta be. It really should be the first thing if they're gonna be like. Obviously, I'm fine with the free market too, but is it? I just don't get how they can possibly restrict homegrown. It's like telling people they have to eat in restaurants, they can't cook at home. Like that's just nuts, you know. And obviously, most people still grow their own if they want to, they because there's nobody kicking down your doors in Washington looking for your 10 plants or anything. I'm sure just about anybody that wants to grow their own there does. And I have seen with legalization kind of anecdotally, but I think it shows up in the grow shops closing everywhere. But a lot of people stop growing their own once it's legal and they can just go buy a cart every month or an eighth every week or whatever because they're like, I'm not going to bother running the closet anymore. I don't smoke that much. A lot of people back off. So I think seed sales, when you can buy weed legally, seed sales are low because people buy weed instead of seeds. And if it's legal to grow their own and they can buy clones, a lot of them will buy the clones instead. So it's really a hardcore group of heads that are the aficionados that'll keep buying seeds because they love popping seeds and checking out new things. Because when you're popping a seed, you're getting a individual nobody else has ever seen before. And like you said, if you can get that lightning in the bottle, you just happen to be lucky and you think, wow, I found a beauty here. Obviously, it makes a difference if they're starting from good packs of seeds. It's pretty easy to find a winner when you're starting great stuff. So I totally get the excitement of planting from seed. I love making selections. That's just, what drives me to do selective breeding is I love to just lay out vast amounts of plants from seed and start looking through them for the best. And the best is subjective. It just depends what you're looking for. And some people have different tastes than I do, but there's always people that'll appreciate whichever ones, if they're not trash. But it's,
I would say I would add
not
to this
everybody
is
has.
what I would add to that is what you're saying is with the impending change of the hemp bill, technically if the seed comes from a mother that has THC traces in it, that seed will be deemed illegal moving forward. However, if somebody pops that seed and grows a pheno that's a phenomenal pheno, that clone is no longer covered by that farm bills because it has no THC. So you could actually sell that clone legally. So that's why I think that one of the things moving forward is clones are going to be king, and you're going to need an army of people that hunt and hunt, and that's all that's they love to do. We have people that like one guy in particular, it drives me crazy because he doesn't take clones, but he's like, oh yeah, I just love growing, 30, 40 different seeds and then, and just running them all the way through and taking the good with the bad. But he's just a phenomenal grower. But at the same time, it's like, you should probably take a cut. And he's like, no,
Yeah,
I'm just going to keep popping.
when
I'm
you,
going to keep popping seeds. But to my
that's so
point
sad.
is
Not,
like, yeah. But yeah, but like, like you were saying, it's all about how you see what's coming and obviously changing and shifting, but evolving and growing, right? And like for instance, like we're a genetics company, but also we're diversified in a sense that we have an understanding of this plant and what's in this plant and how this plant affects you in your CB1 and CB2 receptors. And so we're now breeding in that direction and heavy in that direction, especially for oil output. And because everything's gonna ultimately, the vast majority of the industry and when it comes to cannabis is going to be in extraction and stuff that's made from that oil, that God's nectar there is going to be into food, water, everything else. It's gonna, to me, in a perfect world, cannabis would be treated as a dietary supplement in falling under the FDA under that, and let the people work it out and innovate it from there, because you can't overdose on cannabinoids. You can't have too many cannabinoids where it's a diverse effect to you. You can run into a problem where your cannabinoids affect your medication, your synthetic medication that you're putting into your body, and you can have an adverse effect to that because you have a natural thing in your body that is getting replaced by a synthetic, and so you could have a reaction to that. But the actual cannabinoid itself, you're not having issues. And if you have too much THC, you're going to take a nap, but you don't have to worry about not waking up like you would some other type of medications.
not for sure.
So how do you like the podcast so far? You announced on social media, we're like, should I do a podcast? And you had such a good rapport. People were like, yes, absolutely. What that's a stupid question. And so, but I don't know if you still get the same way, but anytime you got to get in front of camera or when you got to do a podcast or a live or something like that, even to this day, I still get nervous. Like I'm like, oh,
I,
and have like, you know, butterflies or something. I mean, you know what you're talking about, but for some reason, you just know like people are going to watch this, right? There's all this stuff that
yeah,
goes through
and
your
there's
head,
always
and
gonna.
then
Yeah.
yeah,
You
you
know,
still
this
get that?
it's funny you say that. No, not at all. And I used to be very camera shy back in the day because we, had to keep a private, low profile. So on
Yeah,
one hand, you're trying to advertise your brand and buying ads in the different pop magazines. On the other hand, never letting a picture of you out there. Not going up on the stage to collect the awards, sending staff up or whatever. So I used to, so I went from always liking to be behind the curtain to eventually, I'd been on so many podcasts as a guest at that point, and every time I did one, people would say, "You should start your own. You should start your own." So eventually, like I don't know, 8 years of that or something, and then I was like, "Oh, you know what? This winter, I'm not that busy. I'm not. I don't need to be constantly on the move and stuff." Because I used to be traveling more for Colombia and Thailand and Europe, and this year I kind of had a breather, and I thought, I'm going to be home all winter. I should just I'll do the podcast thing for a while. And if I get tired of it, I'll stop doing it. If nobody likes it, I'll stop doing it. But as long as it's interesting and fun, I'll keep doing it. So to me, it's
hmm
interesting and fun because I get to have chats with people. It kind of inspires me more to like reach out and say, hey, let's have a chat. Let's get together and learn about what other people are doing and what they've worked on and what their local situation is because it's different for everybody. Like in the States, every state is different. Canada is pretty much the same across the country, but there is some regional differences of provinces. Some provinces you can't do homegrown. According to the
yeah,
feds, you can have 4 plants a household, but according to some provinces, you can't have any. And that's unacceptable. And they have challenges, which they'll hopefully win. But 4 plants is kind of insulting too. But it's better than no plants, which was what you were allowed before that.
yeah,
So, and if you have 4 to 12, you're still risking a fine. But over 12, they can give you like 6 months and a fine. I think it's even mandatory. So it's really like worse in a way, if you're
yeah,
used to planting more seeds. And then I may not want to finish, hundreds of plants or thousands of plants in my personal collection, but I might want to start that many seeds and then thin them out to my favorite 36 flavors or whatever.
hmm
Give me a break. That's is still the same amount of space in my yard, basically, but they're obsessed with numbers. It's all they've got. They can't think of like square meters or square feet. They're just like plant numbers. Ooh,
yeah.
THC phobia. If you have 13 plants, now you're a criminal. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Like it's just
The reason
insane. So
the reason why I ask is because I think it's great that people like yourself that are just a vast world of knowledge, especially around this plant and has really, lived a really cool life that now gets to choose who the person wants to talk to. And then just those normal back and forth conversations, just those conversations back and forth, people get to pick up and learn so much. And the reason why I say this because
exactly, yeah.
I pretty much that's all. Anytime I'm working, I'm listening to a podcast, and just kind of going, and that's where it's like whether you're skipping through lives or podcasts and all that, because it gives you a really good idea of like what's going on in the community, why people are doing what they're doing, but also people like yourself. Like when I saw that you were like, yeah, should I start a podcast? It's like, absolutely, right? Like, yes, why, you should be doing it yesterday. And so, because there's so much, there's so much stuff that needs to be extracted out of you. But if you put it on a platform, that means it's there forever. So people 10, 20 years from now are going to go back and listen to the word to your words and what you were saying and stuff like that. So yeah, I just want to tell you, I think it's really awesome that you started it and obviously
I
wish you the
appreciate
best
it.
and we'll help you in any way that we possibly can.
I super appreciate it, Brendan. That's really, really kind of you. It's nice to think that somebody would give a shit what I had to say in 20 years, but you never know. And it's nice for posterity. I think it's good to get your perspective out there. And if people can learn something from your experience, that's better than making some of the same mistakes themselves. If they can take it from there. But it's fun too. It's just it's like you said, just community spirit kind of feeling with it.
Yeah.
But I think
Well, I think what we also could do too is it's getting people familiar with each other, because like I think that as we are now in communication with each other and other people, it leads to other stuff. So like for instance, like it would be cool to see here in the coming weeks or coming months where we do have a panel of breeders that we do discuss on why did you think this was going to work, and we're like what character traits are you looking for, and kind of basically giving like insights. And because there's other people that are on the brink of having really good hunted out really good genetics, and then looking at the possibility of taking that step to making seeds and eventually creating a line. And so I think that, us having these type of conversations and people getting familiar, and you bringing people on, and then, everybody gets to kind of hear each other talk, that I think it would ultimately, would lead to a Breeder Steve's kind of, panel where you kind of rotate people in, and we go through and we walk through the steps and discuss techniques and discuss what would, the failures, and discuss the successes, and kind of really and kind of just basically workshop it in real time with, and let people give people that type of information.
sure, why not? That would be fun. I would, another way I would like to do some of the shows is as like blind tasting panels. So we get like
Hmm.
numbered joints, and we get to evaluate them, and we can smoke them and evaluate them quietly, and then take notes, just like we did with wine tasting. Because I did, some high level wine tasting for a long time. I was a vintner for 15 years. I made wine as well. But then I would often get onto industry panels and stuff like that, or for judging events and stuff. So it did a whole lot of sense. Like I formally studied sensory evaluation, so it was really a lot of fun. And there's just a parallel universe, to evaluating lineups of wine or lineups of cannabis. Obviously, it's not identical, but there's a lot of overlap. That's for sure. So it
Yeah.
would be a hoot. If you want to come up, especially in the summertime, you're welcome to come up for a visit and stay at the guest room, and we'll float around the pool and smoke some fatties. And it's not
Yeah.
too far.
In fact, I was just talking to a couple people on doing something funny where, because like Vancouver Island, you got Point Roberts, right? And then over along
Close.
some of certain parts of the border where it's just basically you can come right up to the pole where it says U.S. and all that, um, and just having kind of a sesh, even though you're on your side of the country and and all that,
Yeah.
just for fun,
Yeah.
So we've actually been kind of talking about that, and that would be fun to do, even though we can't cross the line, we still can interact and
We can't
actually,
pass the joint. We can just sit there and blow smoke at each other.
no, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but
You
I think
just
it would
can't
be
pass the
fun
joint.
yeah. So I think it would be fun to set up a tripod on the Canadian side, and then set up another one on the US side. And then you simulcast that. So you have one angle that's Canadian and one angle that's American, right? And just mic everybody up and just have a fun time with it, and just do something that is corny,
that
but I
would
think
be
people
funny.
would get
Yeah,
a
one of
would get
the
a kick out of it, you know. And
where
so,
you
but
could one close. I think it's Oroville is on the lake in South Okanagan, and the
mhm.
border's in the middle of the lake. So you could have two boats like pull up right to each other.
Dude, like
It's the warmest
that's
lake
what
in Canada, I think. Too. It's a small lake.
I think that would be fun to do, where if we got a boat and we got a big old Canadian flag and a big old American flag, right? And And then it shows that, you get a drone, so it shows us come closing the gap while we're coming in, and we're gonna have a meeting in the middle of the lake. I think, because technically, I think that you
They'll
could
come
actually.
up to you. The U.S. Border Patrol will be on our ass in no time because I have a friend that has a place on that lake and he goes jet skis. If he gets too close to the middle, they come racing out to him.
Oh, do they
He's like, I'm
really?
still on the Canadian side. He'll swerve back in, but if he goes on a jet ski towards the line, then they come racing out to him, and he just spins
Is it
back.
marked?
He just does it. What's that?
Is it marked? Do they have
I don't
buoys
know
out
how
there?
clearly it's marked. There's probably a buoy, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think it
It's a
would. To
small
me, I
lake,
think it
though.
would. To me, I just think it would be fun to, like. You're gonna have the border patrol there watching you, right? But we're not doing anything
Yeah,
nefarious. We're
yeah.
not
You're
exchanging
gonna be on
anything. We're
camera
not,
for sure.
right?
No,
We
you
all have
just pull up in
cameras, like.
canoes and sit 6 feet apart. That would be funny.
I mean,
That would be
why
funny.
not? So, but yeah,
That would
you,
be good fun. That would be a fun gag. Except,
but yeah,
you never know. I don't trust those border guys. They're throwing Canadians in the clink for God knows how long it right now, just for like looking at them wrong.
well,
It's not a
that's
they.
why you live stream everything. So everything is a live stream. The
Yeah, you
video's
gotta live stream it.
nonstop going. You know how it goes. But yeah, no, is there anything that I can help you with moving forward? You just let me know. But I'm down for all sorts
I
of those
appreciate it.
cornball type of ideas. That I'm up for
Oh,
anything.
good, good. You like to raise a little hell? That sounds like fun. The last two times I was in the States were 95 to see the dead at the Space Needle. And
Hmm.
then 96, I went down to hear David Grisman in Bellingham. And that was the last time I was in the States, was 96 to see Grisman in Bellingham. I haven't gone down
Yeah.
since. So that's
You,
I've never been like denied entry or anything. I just stopped going. I thought, they lock up too many people for weed. So once they federally legalize it, I'll start coming back, but I won't go until then. And I
yeah.
didn't think I'd have to wait this long. I really didn't think
Yeah.
I'd
That's
have to wait this long. But
absolutely. Yeah. Well, the I don't know. Like I said, the Canadians and the Americans have kind of the same problem in many senses when it comes around this, but I don't really see too much difference between the two countries when it comes to the people. You know what I mean? And where a
no,
lot of
no, they're
people
very
think that
similar.
there's different accents, right?
Slightly different accents, but yeah, you talk to somebody from South America, they can't tell us apart. You know what I mean? Yeah, we can
Yeah,
tell
yeah,
each
yeah.
other apart after a bit, but if you're from Brazil, like we're the same, right? Like they're just gringos. So the
100%.
so I don't, it's all a matter of perspective, I guess, and relativity. Like to a European, we're all North Americans, let's say.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they don't see much difference, but you know. It, there's definitely
Well,
differences. They're not but it's more in I guess in an attitude sometimes. Like there's the Canadians are more tolerant of big government. Most Canadians, I'm personally not, but most Canadians I think are more tolerant of big government, which is, they might see it as a positive. Not all of us see it as a positive, but I think also very more peace oriented, less aggressive, and it's really, we don't always, we'll go along with allies, but we don't want to be locked into it. You want to have a choice, they don't want to say, okay, well, whatever you do, you go pick a fight with that dude, we'll back you up. We're like, hey, okay, you pick a fight with that dude, that's on you at this point. Like he hasn't started anything, leave him alone. But whatever, there's
yeah.
not much we can do about it. Like the little people don't get much of a say in it. It's all just the illusion of choice. And the big
Sometimes you gotta
shots
tell
call.
people. Sometimes you gotta tell people you found the ass whooping you were looking for.
I hate to be cavalier about it because it's fucking tragic on so many levels. Like all the innocent people. If it was just all the meatheads that wanted to go kill each other, I wouldn't give a shit. Honestly, go like put them in a ring somewhere and let them go at it. But as far as families in apartment buildings, I think they don't deserve to get bombed. I'm one of those old-fashioned anti-war pot smoker hippie types. Even if I'm
Oh,
not a full-time
100%.
hippie, but I just think if used to be like cannabis and anti-war were pretty much synonymous. Now it is really
Hand in hand.
not. You can't think. So it does sadden me a little bit to more than a bit to see the tolerance for the bloodshed of others. That it's if they're willing participants, have at it. If they're
Well,
not, leave them alone. That doesn't seem like a lot to ask.
yeah, but it's also too it's influence and prime for society to accept it. Like to me,
Mm.
I lived through 9/11. I lived through 20 years of useless wars. We have a lot of contact with vets and seen the toll that it takes on that and the 23 people that take their life every day because of the effects of a lie that sent the United States into these conflicts, right? And then, so when you learn and you understand history, you see it repeating itself. And so, but yeah, that's why I've seen a lot of your activism on X, and we get vocal to the like. And today I was going back and forth with somebody, and they said that I offended them because I said if you feel so strongly, I will send you give me DM me your location, and I will look up the closest recruitment center so you and the fam bam could sign up. And he took it super
Yeah, right,
like
right.
personal, and I was like, you took it the way I walked away from it was you took it personal because it dawned on you that this situation might affect your family, and it does. It affects everybody. It
Yeah,
affects everything. And
yeah.
and
No,
to
it's
me, I'll stand if I say something. I'm going to stand by it because, and not to say that I'm not open-minded. If you can give me evidence on where I'm wrong, I'm going to change the way that I think. But until then, I'm going to stand on what I said. And with me is nothing good comes out of war. Nothing good comes out of regime change. There's nothing good that comes out of intervention on these type of scales. And the only people that do pay for it is the regular day people that are looking over their head to get bombed. And then on the Western side, the monetary sacrifice and everything making it harder to live. And really, everybody agrees we just want to live a life that is peaceful and not have the government down our backs and telling us what we can and can't do. And we just need to stop this crazy small part of our society that is bloodthirsty and just wants war all the time and keep us in this perpetual suspension. And that's not too much to ask. And you know that's what makes it frustrating is the hippie movement was built in stem, and the cannabis culture was stemmed from the opposition of the Vietnam War, right? And so now it's like to see people in this community being like rah rah, invade Iran. I'm like, you don't know your roots. You didn't learn the history. You didn't understand. Like we're walking
man, they
into
learn nothing.
some
It's one thing to
no,
be the first to be gulled into something stupid, but to be the 10th, you gotta give yourself a kick. Like come on. But I
yeah.
do feel bad for a lot of the people because I feel like they've just been so heavily indoctrinated their whole life that they don't know any better. They really, it's not that they're evil in their hearts, it's that they've been indoctrinated to think, look, no matter what we do, as long as we wrap ourselves in the flag, it's okay. And it's no excuse. It's just, I don't
Here's a
have
way
a
to think about
tolerance
it,
for it.
Steve. Here's a way to think about it. If you and a group of people from Canada decided to launch a bunch of bombs and fuck up my life here in Seattle, and you are conflict pain to me, I'm not gonna go, oh, Steve thought I was a threat. I understand what he did. No, I'm gonna go fuck up Steve. You get what I'm saying, right? And then
Sure,
you turn
sure,
and you
sure.
go,
Yeah.
oh man, that Branden, he's an extremist, right? Look at him, he's a fucking
Yeah.
terrorist and all that. You
He's
get what I'm saying,
defending
right? Like,
himself. He's defending himself. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so that's why I think that it's like like by not understanding the actual conflict. Like when you see a lot of people when the Iran thing, they say, "Oh, well, what about 1979?" I'm like, "Well, what about 1953?" And they go, "Well, what was 1953?" Like 1953 is the actual start of it, right? The United States and British Petroleum told the country that this oil under your land isn't yours, it's ours.
Hmm.
And so, and then they
You're right.
overthrew the
You're totally
government,
right.
right? And then they decided that that government that the U.S. installed was so suppressive that they overthrew it, and so it went to another extreme. So that's why I think it's
Yeah.
like
Right. Right.
to
Right.
me, it's like, yeah. But if you try to explain that to somebody, they're like, "Shut up, you don't know what you're talking about." And it's like, yeah, actually,
No,
unfortunately,
you're
I
right.
do.
Yeah, that's the thing. I really appreciate talking to intelligent Americans like yourself that totally have a better grasp of what's happened in the world through time to bring us to where we are today. Because it's got to be undone. Like people got to learn to back off on some levels. Like it's not that I'm any friend of the Iranian regime or the American regime, or the
No, it's
Israeli regime,
to
or the
me, I
British
don't.
regime, or the Canadian regime. I don't like any of
Here,
them.
look.
They all suck.
The way I look at it, the way I look at it is this: what Canadians want to do, let Canadians do what they want to do. What Iranians want to do, let them do what they're going to do. It Timbuktu population wants to do, let them do whatever they want to do. I don't live there,
Yeah,
right? I don't live in
it's not your
Canada. I
problem.
don't live
It's
in
not your
Middle
problem.
East.
Yeah, no,
100%, right? Now, I
yeah,
live in the United States, right? So I'm going to be vocal about
yeah.
that and their
Stop sending
decisions.
my money.
Right? I
Yeah,
did,
well,
like, for
the thing
instance,
is, the U.S. has been paying tithe to another country in the Middle East that starts with an I for a very
dude,
long
look,
time, and they're bleeding them dry.
look, if you look at, that's a thing too, that I can't believe how taboo that came. History is history. And if you start going and looking at the Bolsheviks, you start looking at all this stuff, you're like, oh shit, okay, this makes sense. Now, what it is people like to be selective and stay in the ignorance, right? And it's easy to do because it's not a problem until it affects you, right? So now,
Right.
what when you have a situation where here in the United States, in the first days of it, you had four high officials come out and go, "Yeah, we entered this preemptive war at the behest of Israel." And then the next day they go, "No, we didn't say that." And it's like there's
Right. Right.
video of you saying it, right? So now the next day you
Yeah.
didn't, we're not that stupid. This isn't 2001 anymore. You can't, manipulate us. So, but my point is that to me is scary and dangerous because if you have an entity that has that much influence, then you are no longer a sovereign nation. You are an
You're not.
occupied
It's not
nation.
a sovereign
In
nation. It's an
Yeah.
occupied nation, and that's what's hard
So
to see.
what?
Like we think of for a long time, you think of America as a proud nation, and now you feel like, well, it's too bad what happened to America. Like and it's not like it
No.
just
See, what
happened
I'm afraid
yesterday.
of.
It's kind of from JFK on has been going,
So
but it's
what I'm afraid of, what I'm actually truly afraid of is this: is like I I can see it. I don't have animosity one way or the other. What I look at and what I worry about is the history of the United States, okay? History of the United States and its mentality and how violent it is. It's like a pressure cooker, right? That it booms, booms, boom, like builds up, builds up, builds up. And then it doesn't let off gas. It just blows the fuck up. And what I mean by that is there's going to come to a head and conclusion that it goes, this is now the enemy, and then it's going to go to the extreme. And that's what I'm afraid of. Is the violence that will end up erupting in this country because they didn't put in the right safeguards and do it the right way. They just went for pure pressure. You start taking away the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, you're gonna need the streets filled with the National Guard and all that because, like as an example, this country burned for 40 days and 40 nights. That's how we got civil rights, right? It wasn't because Martin Luther King was fucking sitting on a bus riding around, sitting in diners. Okay, he brought attention to it. Okay, but what stirred and really scared our government was when you turn on the news and Chicago, Seattle, LA, Boston was on fire every fucking night. That's how you got the change, right? They were like, hey, we better
Mhm.
allow these fuckers to vote, or else these fires are going to keep coming every day. And that's where I see this as leading,
Yeah.
where you're going to have the oppression. And when you have a country like Israel telling Americans, you need to shut up, you don't deserve the First Amendment, that's going to be a springboard and a pushback that is going to probably turn dangerous. So it's like, find a balance
Yeah.
and get something that works for everybody, and also, don't be pushing a group of people that is already stressed the fuck out, because you're it's gonna backfire. That's what I'm afraid of. That's why I look at it.
Mhm.
And because it's just
Yeah, I don't think
because in the
there's going
United
to be
States.
a peaceful end to it the way it is now. They don't see how they can ever, because the government, both sides are so gone, they're so owned, and neither of them are going to give that up, So you can't vote
Yes,
your way out of it when they're both
but
owned
what
by the same team.
what they're not seeing, though, what they're not seeing that I'm seeing, and this is my opinion, is the reason why Trump got elected, it wasn't because he's a good politician. It isn't because he can talk shit with the best of them. People elected him because he wasn't a politician. Okay. He was the one that said,
Right,
I
right.
want to go after the deep state. I want to arrest people. I want to, and we saw like his mugshot. When his mugshot came out, I was like, it's a wrap. He's elected, right? The worst thing you could do was arrest him. You turn him into a martyr. But what you have now is you have the Democrat and the Republican side. So you're going to have your hard rights and you're going to have your hard lefts. They're going to be ride or die for that person no matter what. And then what you have is you have everybody in the middle of that either go independent or side with Republicans or side with Democrats. Now, what I've never seen really in my lifetime is these Republicans and Democrats that were just in odds with each other a year ago having conversations and actually having dialogue that doesn't involve you fucking retard or whatever shit that they're talking shit. You get what I'm saying? Now that is
Yeah, yeah,
dangerous
yeah.
to establishment situations, because the United States is a leader. So, as an example, if the United States blows its lid and people take to the streets and shit goes haywire, every country will be put on notice because we lead that type of shit. You get what I'm saying, right? Like the reason why
Yeah,
cannabis
yeah.
is illegal and across the world is because the United States said first we're going to, start prohibition, and every other country fell suit. So that's why I'm getting. That's
Yeah.
what actually worries me is these tensions getting so high that it just takes a life of its own. And then once that genie's out, I don't know if we're going to be able to put it back in. And so, that's where I think. And then if you say shit on social media, you either get censored or you're like, oh, you're anti-Semitic, or you hate this country. And it's like, no, I just know. I have an understanding of history and where this shit goes,
Mm.
and when you have riots, people get hurt. When you involve National Guard, people die. So, like we need to get our head out of our ass and we need to find cooler heads to prevail and actually assess the situation, or it's going to get pushed where, there might not be going back. As an example, you want to end this war tomorrow, you tell Israel and Iran, hey, you guys need to work out some terms, get on a peace deal, because the United States is bouncing in a week. And if you don't have deal by the time we leave, then Iran is going to blow the shit out of you, right? You get what I'm saying, right? They are clearly in the driver's seat. There's no way around it.
If they were in the driver's seat, they could walk away, but they're not because they're all compromised. So they can't walk away because they'll get. Trump doesn't want to go to jail. All these people around him, they'll do whatever they have to. And the thing is, if Iran really had nukes, they would never fucking attack it.
No,
They're not going to
no.
attack.
Well, they're gonna get them.
You
United States hegemony is over. There's no like we left all those Gulf states. We realized that we can't protect them, and where our real loyalties lie. So, and so that's a nervous thing too. But now, when you look at stuff, when you look at it as a broader picture, Iran can just it's like sheer numbers game. There, if you have to spend millions of dollars an hour to fight something where they're spending 100 grand an hour, that's a bad place to be. If you're taking a $30,000
Yeah, yeah.
drone, spending $2 million to take that drone down, and they by the time that even took off and that missile hit it, they already built another one, and you can only build
Yeah.
26 of these missiles a month. The math isn't mathing, right? So that's what I'm saying is
No,
they're in the
no.
clear driver's seat, now they're letting those ships through. If you trade your oil in yen, that means the petrodollar is about to take a major hit because everybody's going to switch to paying oil in yen and then ditch the petrodollar. That's how the United States dollar is propped up, is the petrodollar.
Right,
So
right. It's
thanks, Trump.
straight
But
up,
but
dude.
back to what I was saying is reason why Trump got elected is because people are looking for a change. And you have in this country, you have people looking for a change. Anyway, we are in the
Right.
midst of history right now. It'll be interesting to see where this shit goes, but it's not for the faint of heart, I can tell you that.
No, that's right. We live in turbulent times, and I don't know how much more turbulent they're going to get, but certainly the potential is there. And for depending where you are, they couldn't be any more turbulent. Like if you're in the places that are getting leveled right now, whether it's Beirut or Gaza or Tehran or any number of places in the world that are just getting bombed to smithereens, you think for those people, nothing can get worse. That's as bad as it gets. So it's just painful. It really is because no, but they don't want it. The people here don't want it. Nobody wants it. It's like that. It's just the guys that profit from the industry of war. Really. And there's a military industrial complex, and those bombs got a best before date. And if they want to sell more, they got to use up the old stock. They just got to
Hey,
keep fighting. Is
this might be an opportunity coming for hemp to really become a staple in this country again, like it was in the founding years of it. So
grow hemp for
there is
victory.
silver linings here and there. Hemp for victory, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
hemp for
and
victory.
then yeah, and then also too, North America needs to bring manufacturing and bring a lot of stuff back. And in reality, there's a lot to be said where Canada, United States, and Mexico should be top producers of a handful of things, not fucking incarcerations and dope addicts and stupid politicians. That's who
Mm.
we're excelling crazy at. But your problems isn't too far from our problems, and I think a lot of people are
No,
starting to
that's right.
recognize that. And so,
We're all on this earth together, and that's we're earthlings. To me, first and foremost, we're earthlings. And then the legal fictions
mhm.
of the nation states are just there as tax farms to screw us. But
Yeah.
I remember reading like a futuristic story in grade 10, and it was from a fairly old author at the time, even. So this was really old. And I've looked for it and I cannot find it again. But it wasn't about making Canada the 51st state, but it was about forging a new country that was called a Mexicanada. And it was all three of them joined as, with a new constitution or whatever, and they made it one new powerhouse country, and they think, well, if you could all come up with something you get along with it, it's not a matter of one joining the other. It's like, let's just make something new that just respects individual rights and throttles government and doesn't leave room for corruption. Because I really just see as government is always just like a magnet for corruption. Like it's the levers of power that are corruptible. If you don't have levers of power,
Well,
who do you corrupt? you know?
yes. And then back to what I was saying, that's what I'm actually concerned about is the people doing basically when they're like, for instance, when the Tea Party, right? They're like, I ain't paying this fucking tax, right? Because both United States, Canada, and now Mexico, the government stopped looking out for the people's interest, and that's clear as day now, right? So it's like whatever. whatever money can be made at the expense, and we're gonna, keep people basically, slaves and shit like that. A lot of people are waking up to that. Everyday people are waking up to that. Like people that you normally wouldn't think would talk and have these type of conversations are having these conversations now. To me, that's like that is revolutionary shit. That's to me makes me nervous because I'm like they're that the flame is getting hot. It's getting hot, right? And so you piss the people off, right? And you've seen in that cartoon, the Ant movie, right? They're sitting there like, who would have known
I
if they
haven't
all
seen it.
stand up, they'd be able to take us out, right?
Oh,
So
right,
yeah,
right. I saw
yeah,
clips of it.
but it's like it's one of those things that that does keep me up at night, but at the same time there's nothing you can do, there's nothing I can do. We're in for the ride, and as long as you stand on what you believe in, you're going to be just fine. And I think a lot of people are going to have egg on their face and on the wrong side of shit. That's why I'll stay vocal, because I feel the vast majority of the time I'm on the right side of history. And if I'm on the right side of history, even if it's frowned upon, I'll stand there because, in my head and the way I feel moving forward, I'm clear conscience because I feel like, yes, I stood up for the right things and did the right things, even if it comes at a great cost.
Good for you, man. I really, I appreciate getting to know you better today. It's super awesome, dude. And I hope you do
Yeah.
come up for a visit. Anytime you're welcome, but the summer's the best, I think, if you like to hang out at
Yeah.
the pool and barbecue.
We'll definitely have to plan that. So, you just, but I think, I'll send you my number and you have my email. So we'll definitely stay in contact. I think that,
Sure.
expanding on your conversations and all that stuff is gonna be great. And looking forward to seeing, all the stuff that you're gonna put out into the world. And I really appreciate your time.
Well, yeah. Hey, dude, I'm not doing too much here. I'm just doing my homegrown here, but trying to keep some interesting projects underway elsewhere. But dude, it was really, really a pleasure. I appreciate you coming out, Brandon. It's really been fun, and
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah. Anytime. And let me know kind of if there's anybody I can help you get a hold of or whatever. I can,
Well,
like I said,
whoever
I'll
you
help you in any way that I
recommend,
can.
who do you recommend I should have?
Actually, I kind of I'll send you a couple recommendations. There's a couple people out there that I
Sure.
really like. For instance, I kind of want to get some of the podcasters to kind of talk to each other, and the reason why is because the it'll help broaden the horizons of a lot of people, because you guys are becoming the stewards of information across the board for the community, and then kind of showcasing a few things. I want to get a couple of doctors and nurses on some of these podcasts and explaining cannabinoids and terpene profiles in detail. So it's not just, some asshole like myself being like, hey, these are been medical benefits to you and nutritional value. It's like an actual, you know, person that's their livelihood and that are
Sure.
professionals and experts at it. You know what I mean? Not just
Yeah, yeah.
some guy that knows how to mix it into food. You get what I'm saying? So, but yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah, no,
yeah.
like I
I'm not a
said, Steve,
medical professional.
like I say,
Well,
I'm
have
not a
yourself a
doctor. I just play
beautiful
one on
night, man.
TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a good night.